My name is Leo Green, and I've written 5 books, one of which is Baptized into Christ's Death. In it, we have in one of the chapters the interpretation of the Zodiac in the 1st century. This book can be purchased for $12 plus $3 shipping, and it can be sent to Leo Green, 18886 Weld County Road, Brighton, Colorado, 80603. This particular chapter begins on page 15. It's called The Zodiac Symbols Are Found in the Early Synagogues. We know that through excavations we found these zodiac symbols throughout the early synagogues, as well as we know it to be found in the temple. And it's thought of that Adam was the one who wrote the zodiac symbols in the sky. And he wrote them in the sky as to give us a story of our salvation. And we didn't know this story until Jesus came. And then the story got told. And the story begins with Leo, the first constellation Leo, Latin for lion. And we find that constellation in Revelations chapter 5 with the Father in heaven holding the scroll, and no one can open the scroll except the lion from the tribe of Judah, and out comes up the slain lamb, which we know to be Jesus. And so this is Jesus, King of the universe, and next to him is the Queen. And we know in the old Davidic kingdoms, the Queen is the mother. And so this Virgo is Latin for virgin, and virgin would be the Blessed Virgin Mary. So you have King and Queen of the whole universe. Then we go to the next constellation, which is Libra, next to Virgo. Libra is Latin for scales, and we find scales in Daniel chapter 5. Where Balthazar is sinning greatly with a big party, and God writes on the wall, MENE, TEKEL, parson, meaning you've been weighed, been found wanting, and now the Persians and Medes will now have your kingdom. And so this is a scale between the two perfect creatures, Jesus and Mary, and we go to the next constellation, Scorpius. Scorpius is Latin for scorpion. And what are scorpions? They have a stinger, they sting, they hurt. The Scorpius is a representation of a person who sins without conscience. A sinner who doesn't know Jesus at all. And so what our Lord does, he does through the next constellation called Sagittarius. Sagittarius is next to Scorpius, and Sagittarius is a man on a white horse holding a bow and arrow, which is aimed at the heart of Scorpius. And our Lord lets out the arrow, and it strikes at the heart of Scorpius. And we can read this in Revelation 6, which says, John writes in Revelation 6 about the Sagittarius, the rider on the white horse, and he says in Revelation 6, 1-2, I heard one of the 4 living creatures cry out in a loud voice like thunder, Come forward! I looked, and there was a white horse, and its rider had a bow. He was given a crown, and he rode forth victorious to further his victories. And how our Lord wins these victories with this bow is through the next 3 horsemen, through war, famine, and plague. Who goes to war? Men go to war. What happens to them? They die, and they die for their best friend next to them, their family, their country, and they go straight to heaven. Because our Lord said in the Gospels, there's no better love than to give your life for a friend. And that was at John 15:13. And through famine and plague, through the next 2 horsemen, the parents watch their children die, and there's no one that can save them, so they have to turn to our Lord to find peace. Now, next to Sagittarius is the next constellation, which is Capricornus, goat. So when our Lord shoots that arrow into the heart of this non-believer, Scorpius, who sins without conscience, a transformation takes place, and he turns into Capricornus, which is Latin for goat. And what does our Lord say in Matthew 25, 33-41? He says he puts his sheep on the right and the goats on the left, and the goats go to end up in hell, and the sheep go into heaven. So it's not enough to be a goat. A new transformation needs to take place. So you go to the next constellation, The next one next to Capricornus is Aquarius, which means water in Latin. You have to be baptized. And the church teaches when you're baptized, a new creation takes place. And so you go to the next constellation, and that new creation is Latin, Pisces, which is Latin for fish. And now you know where the early Christians got the symbol of fish from this story that's told in the stars. And what do fish do? They swim around the water, but it's not enough to swim. You got to get out and conquer the world. And so you go to the next constellation, which is Aries, which is next to Pisces. Aries is Latin for ram. It means our Lord. What one does is they take their works and they consummate it in the Eucharist. And once they are made perfect in the Eucharist, then they can go on and fight battles. And these battles are seen in the next constellation, Taurus. Taurus is next to Aries. And Taurus is a raging bull. And on one side of the bull you have Orion, who's beaten him on the head. And Orion is a representation of people who want him to sin. So he's going to battle against Orion. And underneath Orion, underneath Taurus is Cetus, the sea beast. That is Satan. Satan is coming under the legs of Taurus in a hidden way, wanting him to sin and tempt him. So if Taurus wins these battles, he goes on to the next constellation, which is called Gemini, the identical twins. So you become the image of Christ. And once you do that, then you enter heaven. You can also see these identical twins as a marriage. Our Lord describes himself as the bridegroom and we're the bride. So you can see the union as marriage as well. But what if you don't pass the test? What happens? You go to the next one after Gemini, and it's Cancer. Cancer is Latin for crab. And what do crabs do? They go on the ocean floor and they eat the dead, is what they do. They live off the dead. And that's a summary of the Zodiac. And again, and this is just one chapter of many chapters in this book. You can pick this book up at Leo Green, 18886 Weld County Road 8, Brighton, Colorado, 80603. $12 plus $3 shipping. That would be a total of $15. And thank you for listening.